Hey, Donna, good to see you.
Hey there, Isaiah. It's so nice to see you too.
All right. We're talking a little bit about putting out fires.
Yes.
So I'm sure you have things to talk about, but I thought, what do you do? I wanted to ask you, what do you do, your life or business, and for people, this could be their career too, becomes just a series of fires to put out and you lose track of like larger goals. Like I always think of that quadrant of like the 7 habits of highly effective people, the Stephen Covey, like urgent, important, urgent, not important, non-urgent, not important, that kind of thing.
I have to interrupt you because I was going to ask you the exact same question.
Really?
I was going to ask you,
Okay.
is it in the air? Is it the season?
Yeah.
What is it? But you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I had the same thing on my mind. It was what do you do? How do you handle when there's so many fires and emergencies and you feel like you're just swept in this hurricane, this tornado of stuff? How do you stay focused? How do you stay calm? How do you do the things that you're supposed to do? Because we all know, what do? You wake up, you have a nice glass of cold water, you do some exercises, you're supposed to lift some weights. We know these things, right? Like we know we're supposed to do it. And when everything is going great, it's easier to do
Yeah.
it. When things are tough and when things are exploding around us, it's not easy.
I think the part that is the most challenging for me, I don't know if it's for everybody, is figuring out, you don't get a lot of reference points on whether or not you're really on the right track because you're a
Yeah.
sample size of one. And how do you know if and you never will know if what you're going to do is going to pay off. You never going to know if you don't even know if like what you're doing is making things worse. The only thing you can
Oh,
know is that,
yeah.
so you're trying to figure it out constantly. And I think that's what it makes it the hardest. And then you just end up putting out, and then when you put your head down to put out fires for a while that come up, especially in a certain context of life.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, it's age based, but some people get there sooner or faster.
Mhm.
So, what I mean is like, am I just skewed because I'm at at the age, like what if I was 30 years old, if I was 25, I wouldn't see the world the way that I do. We're like, oh my God, there's so many fires. I probably wouldn't
Yeah,
see it that way.
but I also
So,
feel that when you are good at what you do, people are going to give you more. You're going to it just your plate starts to fill
mhm.
when you are good at what you do. And this is true as for us as entrepreneurs. This is true for people listening who may be in corporate or maybe in academia. The
Yeah.
better they are, the better they do, the more
Mhm.
that gets onto their plate. And so there is, I think, the first thing is what do I really need to do? What can I say no to? How
Yeah.
can I get really focused on what I should be doing? And what can I offload? I think that is one of the first things. I really
Yeah.
think it's unloading that, which is just think of Michael Michalowicz and the pumpkin plan. Like you got to pluck those pumpkins that ain't going to grow, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's a piece of it. I think the other piece is like what you said, which is like, am I doing the right things? Like, I don't know. I'm all by myself working really hard. Am I
Mhm.
doing
Mhm.
the right things that I should be doing? And to that extent, something that my husband and I just did on Monday, I said to him, I feel like there's so many things happening and I'm trying to juggle so much.
Yeah.
I'm using up so much brain power just to remember my business stuff, my work stuff, my personal stuff. And he and I sat down and we just did this insane brain dump of
Yeah.
everything. And it was big things and small things and things that needed to be done before the holidays and things that could happen after the holidays. But I got to tell you, just doing that into like a spreadsheet, it was like really a task list, and then
Yeah.
organizing it. When we were done, I felt such a tremendous sense of I can breathe a little.
Yeah. I love that. What you just described is the first few chapters of the best book on productivity ever written. I don't even think it's like 30 years ago, Getting Things Done, right?
Yeah.
GTD, this guy. And he said that the chapter is something to the effect of the first step's not elimination, it's collection. You collect
Yeah.
all of this stuff out of your head. He even says like your physical notes everywhere, every single possible thing. He said it could take an entire weekend to do this. You get into a sheet, immediate clarity because you're using all those working memory. He talks about these open loops. You have open loops in your brain. It's like when you're a waiter or a
Mhm.
waitress. They did these studies, right? And as soon as somebody they can remember everything about a table, who's at the table, but once they close that ticket, they can't remember anything.
Yeah.
And so it's called the Zeek effect or something.
That
right? And
reminds
so
me of another one I
yeah,
heard, which is very similar
yeah.
to that. It's by Steve Pavlina, and I believe he had it in his book, Professional Development for Smart People. Totally up your alley, Isaiah.
I've never heard of it. That's
Oh,
great.
it's a fantastic book. And he talks about how it takes so much memory. Like if you consider a computer
Mm.
and the more tabs and windows you have, the more things that
Yeah.
you've got going, you put so much effort into it.
Mhm.
That's his reason for minimizing and decluttering
Mm.
and everything in its place and don't have too much, get rid of it. Because just as a computer will slow down and get sluggish, so will that human mind if you're living in a space that's just full.
And there's no and you're gonna have it's a constant process. A lot of people think, and I used to think, there's one strategy. There's either the expansion strategy or there's the contraction strategy, but it's actually both. Like it's just like a business. Like you will go through periods of investing and expanding. You will go through periods of consolidation and
Yeah.
cuts. Same thing with your life. You're going to go through periods of expansion, and then you're going to be times like, we got to consolidate some of this stuff because I'm overwhelmed. Like you'll have an internal threshold. You should define what those thresholds are, maybe even put it in your calendar like every quarter, kind of like spring cleaning. That's the big thing. And never, as far as the mental part, because a lot of it's a mental
Yeah.
game. What helps me is, it might seem, I don't know, it might seem counterintuitive, but is remembering like, I don't have to do any of this. Like I'm doing it because I want to. And a lot of people hide from this. Like I'm going to use simpler words here. I want it because I want it. I want it because I want to win. I want it because I want it my way. A lot of people hide from that. You're only doing what you're doing because you want it
Yeah.
yourself. You will lie to yourself. You will do all the things that sound better to society in terms of virtue signaling, like I'm doing it for my family.
Mhm.
I'm doing it for this because I have to provide. No, you want it because you want it,
Yeah.
period. And if this can be freeing because you're like, okay, wait a sec. I'm actually doing this for myself, which means I can just stop doing it at any time.
Mhm.
I'm also not like a sacrificial animal. So all these people might be counting on me, but I can still stop
Mhm.
because if like I burn out or flame out or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like then I can't do anything for them. So I'll come back to that and be like, I can just stop any of this. And just knowing that
Yeah.
and coming back to that actually stabilizes me in a way, centers me, I should say, so that it re-energizes me because, and it allows me to see what are the things that I really want to do without anybody else's influence.
I love that for two reasons. Again, it goes back to my husband and I are doing this big dump of like
Yeah.
information, like how, and I started. So one of the things that I had to do, this is so silly, Isaiah, it's so silly. I couldn't, I just did a whole bunch of speaking engagements, which means
Yeah.
I had a whole bunch of expense reports that I had to submit.
Right.
Money back in my pocket. Do you know I could not do them? I just couldn't. There was something
No.
there's something about an expense report. I think I'm so forward focused. I'm forward motivated for me to
Yeah.
turn around and go, "Oh, where was I and what did I do?"
Yeah.
Can't do it. So,
Yeah.
he sat down and he's doing it with me. I was able to submit it, thankfully. And sometimes you do need a body double. I have found that sometimes you just need someone in that room to sit with you to make you do it. I know it works for me. At any rate,
Good.
so, we do it all. And he says to me, he's like, Donna, just like you said, we don't need any of this. You could stop. We could sell everything. We could downsize. We do this because we want to. We do this
Right.
because we enjoy it. We do this because we love it. But there's no, like, really, ultimately, life wouldn't come to an end if all of this stopped. And
Yeah.
I think in some ways, when I think of that, there's an element of we do have to be almost a little selfish. And that then makes me
Mm.
think what I was saying earlier, which is like, I know I need to work out. I know I need to take time for myself. I need to take long walks. I know I need to sit and journal. These are things that help me. Maybe they help you. Maybe they help someone who's listening. And if it doesn't, maybe there's something else that's within your wheelhouse that you enjoy. And we have to, even when it does feel like there's emergencies and explosions and tornadoes everywhere, you have to be a little selfish and say, I'm going to stop. I'm going
Yeah.
to do what I know I need to fuel me because I can't keep going without the fuel. And that, which reminds me of something someone said to me when I had my first son. They said, like, when you're on a plane and these emergency, like the oxygen comes down, hopefully it never comes down. It's never come down for me and I never wanted to. But
Right.
what did they say? put your mask on yourself before you help anyone else. And I think that's a really big piece of all of this is you got to put that oxygen mask on yourself before you can do anything else.
I've been really thinking about the motivation of just wanting something because you want it. There's this this master class platform where you can watch all these
Oh yeah.
famous people. Anyway, I've never gotten it, but I watched one. It was one of the previews for Wayne Gretzky, who like broke all these hockey
Yeah.
records, right? Like people were getting scores. I don't know what the numbers were, like in the single digits, and he's breaking things in triple digits. Just one of those people that was like the Michael Jordan of hockey, or that really invented the game. But he talks about, he's like, oh, I wasn't the best, I wasn't the fastest skater, couldn't hit the puck the hardest, wasn't the biggest, strongest, but I just wanted to score more than anybody else, just because I wanted it, like just the will, right? So I think that is energizing for people. Get so diffuse because I think they're actually asking themselves, why am I doing this? They're constantly negotiating with themselves. The cost is too much. Why am I doing this? And they've confused themselves, and they're bringing everybody else's will and desire into it, when they should just get, in a good way, kind of come back to their self, whether you call that selfish or not, and say, I want this because I want it. And use a little bit of that drive, what you want selfishly, even a little bit of defiance, and know yourself. Like, defiance can be powerful too. Like, some people get defiant and they're like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm not going to deal with this anymore. Or I'm not going to deal with this anymore. I'm going to work to a promotion. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to quit my job. There's power in defiance, but I think it also goes in the reverse for the certain personality type. Like for me, I know that I'm like very forward thinking too. I'm switched on. I have to go after something new. So the defiant part for me will be like, no, I'm not going to do that for that person.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to do that for that person anymore. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to the gym for 2 days because I can, because I'm in control.
Yeah.
Right. So it might seem crazy to some people to say that, but I really think if you can come back to me like, I'm doing this for myself, and I'm in control of what I do.
Yeah.
That it can be energizing to people in a healthy way, because it'll recenter you. You're the source. It's your energy. Otherwise, it's just going to get diffuse, and then you can't help anybody.
Yeah.
And you can't achieve anything big.
Yeah. When you stop and you center and you re-own it and you recognize your control, and then you can start to do the healthy things again that do, help fuel you to do the right things and the good things. And sometimes when you're doing the bad things and you're doing the bad things consistently, right? You're making the wrong choices. You're saying yes to too much. In some ways, that keeps going. So you do have to have that moment to say, stop.
You have to prune.
Yeah.
You got to prune for sure, right? I mean, look at. It seems like it's such a silly metaphor, but I was listening to some podcast or something where they talked about plants. When you prune the plants, they grow more. If you don't prune them, they stop growing, which is crazy to think about. You have to cut off the ends and trim them so that they grow more. And I think it's the same thing for us.
So let's take that to corporate. Right.
Yeah.
So for us, that's easy for us to say because we own our own businesses. And
Right.
it's very easy for us to say no. It's a little harder when you are now in a role and, maybe you're answering to someone and that person keeps giving you more and more and more. And in some ways we think, well, if I want to get ahead, I have to say yes.
I think it's all about optics. I had somebody say this to me once, and they're so right. You say yes to the things that have the most visibility. There's no way around this. You can't, when it's somebody else's business and you're in corporate, you have to say yes to the things that have the highest visibility, which tend to be the things that have the most impact anyway, especially visibility even above your direct manager. Like you want to have cross-functional visibility, you want to have vertical visibility, whatever that thing is. And then make sure you're doing something that moves the needle, ideally towards bringing that company more revenue or profits or productivity for sure. Because and those are all usually attached. And then you have to say no to some other things. And I think there's a way to say no. Obviously,
how do you say no? How do you say no?
It's a negotiation, like anything. You say, if somebody says, and I remember the first time I saw somebody do this, I was like, you can do that. So usually, because I was the person, I was like, yes, okay, I'll do it. Yeah, whatever. You just always say yes. And they said, hey, we got to hit this project and we want to get this out there. It's something that I think is going to help the business. Can you get this to me by the end of the week? And they're like, I like this idea. I have this, and this as the priorities you've given me previously. Is it okay if I finish those first and then I can get this to you in 3 weeks? And the manager was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. And then they went back to their office. Like that.
It was so simple.
Happened right in front of me. I was a very early career professional, and I was like, that's what it is. So you have to be able to you have to bring it up to your direct report or the manager, the person telling you, like, okay, here's my current priorities. How would you like me to change those
Mhm.
priorities?
Yeah. I love
And
that.
if you ask them about priorities, and then they might say, you know what, but they also might say, well, this is now the top priority. So push those other
Mhm.
things and do this first. But now you have their permission to push the other stuff,
Yeah.
so you're not feeling the weight of the three other priorities.
It reminds me of I went to a project management class early in my career, and the woman who was teaching the class was this amazing, I mean, she taught project management,
Yeah.
and she was relaying this situation where a company had brought her in as a consultant because there was this one woman who she just couldn't seem to ever get her projects done. And they said,
Right.
clearly, she needs project management training. We
Yes.
love her. She's great, but she can't seem to ever get anything done on time. So the project management trainer came in to sit down with the idea that she needed to teach her how to manage her day. And the first thing
Yes.
they did is what we both talked about, like, let's get a list of everything that you need to get done. And she
Right.
put it into, Microsoft project or whatever it was, and found out the woman was doing the job of 3 people. And there was
Mm.
no way in heck she was ever going to get anything done on time because she
Yeah.
had just they dumped so much on her.
Right.
And but she never called out for help. She never said no. She always just said, "Sure, just keep throwing it in." And it's like,
Yeah.
if your manager, if that person who is the one that's giving you the work, chances are they're not a project manager themselves. They're just
Right.
sending the stuff out.
Right.
You have to advocate for yourself. You have to be the one that says,
Yeah.
"Look, just like you said, I got too much on my plate. I can't. It ain't gonna work. It's not gonna
And
happen." Mhm.
even before that, ask for me to say, can we kind of go through my priorities? Because I have, I have these 15 projects, and I want to make sure that we get the priorities right, so I know which ones to tick off. These are all open currently,
Yeah.
and your manager might be like, "Oh my god, I forgot about 7 of those. I didn't even realize." Because the managers, and I think as a manager, I've learned this the hard way. Like a long time ago, we had somebody that was just like this. They would never ask for help. Didn't know how to advocate. They didn't bring up prioritizations, even in meetings. They would never say, even when asked, right? They would never say, and they weren't asked really kind of directly enough or in detail enough or one on one or whatever it took. So they never brought it up or they never really answered. They were just like, I got it. It's fine.
Yeah.
But long story short, they burnt out and they had, going through the open projects, there was like 30, 40 open projects, some of them 6+ that they never mentioned that we thought were closed off. I think one of the most important lessons for a manager is you have to talk to your people and ask them, what projects do we still have open that you're working on?
Yeah.
And maybe it's depending on the type of person, but usually, meet with them one on one so they can tell you without an audience, depending on their personality type. These are all the things that I have open, and then help them reprioritize. But I think prioritization and just communication of what's open and what's not, especially if you're a business that doesn't have this really, really like years of structure, of project management structure, like businesses, in the thousands, even over 150. I mean, the majority of businesses, right? There's 33 million in the US. The vast majority, like 30 million of them, are less than 150
Yeah.
employees. They don't have most of them don't have a great project management structure,
Yeah.
and things move so fast to be responsive to the market. These projects can pile up. So it's a
Hard.
great question.
And I think this even goes to your family life, right? Your home
Yeah.
life, just your personal. Like, what do you have that's out there, and what are you closing, and what are you expecting someone else to be dealing with? In some ways, if we want to truly be empowered, if we truly want to be that leader, we've got to keep an eye. What's up?
Yeah.
What's open? What's closed? What are we moving towards? Otherwise, we're paddling in one spot.
Great discussion, Donna.
It's
Good to see you.
fabulous. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye.